Welcome to Calgary Conversations, a podcast of the City of Calgary where we aim to have frank conversations with city leaders about the issues and topics impacting Calgarians.
Please stand behind the yellow line.
My name is Jose Rodriguez. I am the leader of Media Relations and Employee Communications at the City, and I'm happy to be your host. Welcome back to another installment of Calgary Conversations. We're always happy to have you. Today we're going to take a look at our growing city and the needs that come with a growing city and all the different things the city's trying to do to address how we grow economically. Today we have Oyin Shyllon, our project manager for Prairie Economic Gateway, and some of the work going on there. So Oyin, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Maybe you can, because Prairie Economic Gateway is I don't know, I can't define it in my mind. Maybe you can define it for us. What is it?
Sure, I'd be happy to do it. At the bottom line is what we're trying to build here is a major industrial hub. And the name Prairie Economic Gateway comes from the fact that we are ideally located in the prairies, and we are the biggest city closest to Canada's number one port, seaport, that's the Port of Vancouver. And so all the freight traffic that comes from that port, the closest big city is Calgary. And then from there, we can move goods through the Canadian prairies to anywhere in the North American continent.
So an inland port, if I'm understanding you right, and this one is a bit unique in that we've partnered with Rocky View?
Yes, so it's the very first time that the City of Calgary and Rocky View County have partnered in this type of a way. It's not unique to cities to partner with other municipalities, so I can give two examples that some may have heard of and some may not have heard of. So if we go a little bit east, if we go to Winnipeg, we have Centerport. So Centerport is a partnership between the City of Winnipeg and also another rural municipality. And if we go slightly up north, I know we don't like talking about Edmonton a lot, but we will do that here. Not on this
show anyways.
Okay. So there is a partnership between 5 municipalities. It's the City of Edmonton and 4 other municipalities. So 5 in total. And they're actually also building an industrial hub. So that one is called the Alberta Industrial Heartland, and the one in Winnipeg is called Centerport. So it is not without precedent, but it is precedent setting for Calgary.
So now, and again, this is maybe my very elementary understanding of municipal politics, but couldn't we just take over that land and make it all Calgary? Why would we partner with somebody? It's right on Calgary's sort of edge. Why wouldn't we expropriate?
It's a good question. So there are lots of details I can go into. I will share 2 with them that hopefully convince you. The first one is when we look at all of the cities, not just in Canada, if you look at throughout North America, but especially if we look at Canada, we notice that even when cities do that, when they take on more lands, a lot of the industrial development happens right around their borders. So we will not be solving that problem. We will be pushing it out a little bit further. There are lots of nuances to why that happens. One of them is people trying to get, more land real estate, so the further out you go, the more land real estate, the less you compete with others close to you. And also the rates that you have to pay are slightly more competitive, so people do tend to go out there. So if we do annex those lands, there's a good chance, interest will go even further out, and then we will have to continue annexing until we get to our borders. So, but I mean, Alberta borders, but that's me being a bit joking with you about that. The second reason why it does make sense to actually, collaborate or cooperate is there's actually rigorous evidence in support of it. So I think there are many examples, but maybe the one I should point to is in 2021, a number of researchers at the University of Alberta did a study. So they looked at data, I hope I remember this accurately, but they looked at data from 2006 to 2016. And they looked at well over 100, I may not remember the exact number of municipalities over time, and looking at those who tried to do that, who tried to annex, rather than actually just cooperate and try and build a working relationship. The evidence is if you are a growing city, and we are a growing city, or if you're a growing municipality, there's more benefits to actually partnering compared to actually taking over those lands. And some of that has to do with the notion I shared with you earlier, which is, people keep on moving further out. And so those two pieces are probably the best way to explain, like in grounded economic analysis, why it makes sense to cooperate rather than annex those lands.
So if I'm picturing what this is going to look like, we're on a rail line, and it'll be a giant industrial park. Is that right? Can you show me, is it a lot of warehouses? Is it truck? What does it look like?
Yes. So I'll put in a plug. We have a web page. I will say it is the City of Calgary's first AI-inspired webpage. So it's really good.
We're going two stories in one? You heard it here first, folks.
Yes. So we will do more work to build on that platform, so you can get a better sense of the location and where it is actually situated. But in addition to that, and if I really dive in, the unique thing about this is it's the anchor point, because we all in the team, we call it the nucleus. The nucleus of the gateway is a rail park. And so if you take a look at Calgary and you look at the southeast, just beyond CPKC's intermodal yard, you will see that the main rail line continues to move southeastwards out of Calgary. And so the lands are actually just north. They're adjacent. Actually, the rail line is part of the development. So the lands are north, and it allows you to have spur lines come off that main line. And so if you're a manufacturer, what you would do is, rather than have your goods come via rail and then you get a truck, you pick it up, and then you move it to wherever it is in the city, which could create congestion, what you would rather do is actually be located in that park, have the spur lines come into your warehouse, drop off the goods. I like chocolate. I will use this as an example. So if you get cocoa from anywhere and you bring it in through the spur lines, you bring it into the manufacturing plant, you can actually make chocolates there, and you don't have to literally move anything. You just put it back into that cart, and it could go anywhere it wanted to go to.
So I worked at the Herald for a while, and they have a rail line. They used to bring in the giant news rolls right into the building. I can totally picture what that would be like and how convenient it would be. So with all things, when it comes to the city, everything's an investment and a return on investment. Can you tell us, how much are we putting into this, and what do we expect to get out?
These are early days. We do have some very preliminary estimates, but we're trying to understand. We're working with many partners. This is like, it's an army doing this work in some ways, because it touches every single department here at the city. I tried to do a count just the other day of people directly involved in the work, and it's over 150 already, and I'm sure we don't have everybody. And so what that team is doing is they're trying to understand all the intricacies. So for instance, you need storm ponds, you need storm management facilities, where will they be? You need to identify the road network and the expansions that you need. So we have some very preliminary calculations. We do know that they need some fine tuning, but it is a significant City of Calgary investment. I will say that we've done an economic impact assessment just based on some of the work that will be done. We know that some of the investments will be city investments. We also know that there will be complementary private sector investments. If we look only, when I say city, government, so City of Calgary, Rocky View County, we're hoping to get support from the province and the feds as well. And so if you look at that in ballpark, we know through this work, there'll be more than 6,750 jobs created.
Wow.
We also know that if you think about the multiplier impact in terms of economic output, we know, and that's all the work over many years, we know that that's going to get us to over $1.6 billion in output. So it is, and that's just the investment component. That's not when we actually have lots in there and we actually have development occurring over time and people producing different goods. For instance, I don't know if there'll be a cocoa chocolate factory there. If that comes in, there are different dynamics about the number of jobs that will be created. So some of the information about when it becomes operational, we don't know now. But in terms of setting it up for success, we do have the estimates for that.
And what stage of this are we at right now? Is this sort of the blueprint stage that we're at?
It's a good question. So when we look at this as a team, and you're going to make me say something that I think the team will be happy to hear, is we have a mantra on the team, which is we want to be good, we don't want to be lucky. So this is all about trying to get everything right. There are 5 pillars of work that we know we need to do to get this right. The first one, which is what you're talking about, and some people could call it a blueprint, but municipal geeks call it city and region shaping. Some of them would also call it planning, urban planning. And so what that body of work does is it begins to define and guide the rules around how we will use those lands, how movement would occur through those lands. And so that's what we've been focusing on. So there are 5 pillars. This is pillar 1. It's the foundation for all of the other pillars.
The area structure plan.
The area structure plan.
Yeah.
You know this.
I watch a lot of council.
Yes. And the unique thing, maybe there are actually 2 unique things. This is the first time the City of Calgary and Rocky View County they've co-created, it's a joint planning effort, co-created the area structure plan. So that area structure plan it went to the Infrastructure and Planning Committee on July the 29th. It will go to Council on September 10th. And in addition to the area structure plan, we've discovered that there are some amendments that need to be made to the municipal development plan, which is the bigger plan for the entire city. So those amendments, they're minor amendments. It's just identifying certain connections to the rest of the city's network that are missing because of where the lands are located. And there's also the Rocky View County, City of Calgary intermunicipal development plan. So that the major change in that intermunicipal development plan is because rail is the center of activity here, we've added a Southeast Railway corridor to that intermunicipal development plan so we can actually focus investments around it. So, and rail is the centerpiece of what we're doing here. Like if you think about the rail park, we know that from 1995 to 2022, we know that the volume of goods in Alberta that have gone through rail have increased 8.8 times. That's much more significant than if you think about truck. It's much more significant than if you think about air freight, those types of things. So rail is significant. But beyond that, the beauty of the location we have is it's also the proximity to Stony Trail. So we do have we will have a connection to trucking, and it's also through Stony Trail and Airport Trail connected to YYC. So it's, just looking at all of the transportation network and making sure it's robust.
And having rail at the heart of this is also environmentally responsible, I would think.
100%. So it's it makes sense economically, but also from a climate-friendly sense. We know that, I think it's 1 gallon of fuel through if you use a train, travels well over, I forget the particular number, but it's hundreds of kilometers. So it's, you consume less fuel, the degradation on the environment is much, much less. You also, because of the freight, you can move more things rather than getting many more trucks on the road. So it is significantly environmentally friendly.
Yeah, rail's a popular topic in Alberta these days, so I think we're keeping with the theme. Looking forward, when could we see the first warehouse open the sliders and let a train in?
It's going to be years out. In city speak, we usually think in the 4-year cycles, so we're in the 2023-2026 cycle. It will likely be in the next cycle. And so what we're doing now, so next year and 2026 is preparing. So there are a number of things that have to happen. After we have the area structure plan, there's another level of planning that needs to occur. So we will, so it's called in county speak, conceptual scheme and land use plan. So that will occur next, and that will be a lot of work that would happen next year. But also, if you think about all the infrastructure investments we need to make, we need to be careful and thorough to make sure they will be robust and stand the test of time. So there'll be lots of functional planning studies that will occur next year and the year after to get us ready for 2027.
So Oyin, a plan like this is only as successful as those that are interested in it. What have you heard from the community that would use this I'm going to call it the Prairie Economic Gateway?
Yes, so I'll go back to something I talked about earlier, which is we realize there are 5 pillars of work that we need. You've identified, the importance of the 5th one, which is we are working, and within the team we describe this as an economic development playbook, which is making sure we have people who actually benefit from using these industrial lands and actually attracting them, getting the word out there and making sure they're aware of it, and as they plan into the future, they're prepared for it. So to do that, we're working with our colleagues at Calgary Economic Development. They're constantly reaching out to the global marketplace to make sure we're ready for that. So that's, we have ongoing conversations. We've seen some early requests for information about what this could look like. So we do, and they're mostly focused on manufacturing, so pharmaceuticals, life sciences, those types of things, data centers. So there is some interest just in the general marketplace for this type of industrial play.
And when it comes to return on investment, I just want to pick up on something you talked about earlier, which was if we expropriate and try to bring this inside city limits, that usually draws people further out. So by cooperating with, is it the MD of the County of Rocky View? How is that tax base going to be shared now? Because whereas we haven't driven it all out to Rocky View, we also aren't keeping all that tax base within Calgary. How does that formula work?
So I think by the time we're done, you'll go through all 5 pillars, because this is the 4th pillar. So the 4th pillar of work is really identifying that piece of work, and it's all the agreements that we will need to have in place to actually make this work. I think we may be the first. I can't say for certain, but we're pioneering an approach that when I say first at least in Alberta, where we call it a shared investment, shared services, shared benefit framework. That's grounding the intermunicipal agreement that we would have. That intermunicipal agreement, the current plan is to take it to council after we have the area structure plan and those plans approved. The simplest way to describe what that agreement would look like is, Rocky View County makes a contribution, City of Calgary makes a contribution to make this work, and at the back end, the benefits they receive with respect to municipal property taxes are proportional to the investments that they've made. So it is an incentive for each municipality to try and support this as best as they can with all the resources and the might that they have, because we know we've done estimates. We did get third-party advisors to help us with this, but we've done estimates of what that could look like at the back end when returns actually come in.
So Oyin, think you gave us 3 of the 5 pillars. Can you just really quickly blast off the 5 pillars for us, just so we know what they are?
Oh yes, I'd be happy to. So the first pillar we think of as planning. So that's city and region shaping and building. The second is infrastructure and the infrastructure solutions and the network for the gateway. The third is municipal services. So we need emergency fire response, we need snow clearing, making sure that all of that is thought of and we're prepared day one when activity starts there. And the 4th pillar, which we covered a little bit, that's the agreements, funding and making sure all the agreements are in place for this work. And then the final piece is the economic development playbook.
Now, we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but with Calgary's growing population, the fact that it seems almost every year we're closer to the doorstep of 2 million. How important is something like this to ensure that the future of Calgary continues to be prosperous?
That's a really, really good question. And I think about it in 2 ways. The first one is I've heard, and I do have to look at the data to confirm, but a lot of people describe Calgary as the best connected mid-sized city, and mid-sized in the sense of a population around 2 million anywhere in North America. So if you think about our proximity to the Port of Vancouver, we are the biggest city, as I said earlier on, connected to the Port of Vancouver. Port of Vancouver is the 4th largest by freight cargo in North America. So lots of things move through there. We have that access. So within one day you can get to Calgary.
Rupert's up that way as well, right?
Rupert is further north, yes. We have the second biggest, largest airline in Canada. It's headquartered here. If you also think about rail, the CPKC is right here. And CPKC, unlike CN, although we do have proximity to CN, unlike CN, it gets to all 3 countries on the continent. So the merger that occurred last year extended their rail line from, I'm going to say, something like 20,000 kilometers to 32,000 kilometers, across 3 continents. So we are ideally suited for this type of development. The other is, that's kind of thinking about it locally, but if you think about it more globally, the way I like to think about it is for centuries, for thousands of years, so if you go back to Wadi Hammamet in Egypt, when the pyramids were built, when goods and ideas and services moved, they moved from the Nile to the Red Sea, and it was through an economic corridor, right? And so we've learned we can go, over the years, if you think about the Silk Road, the old Silk Road from Rome to China, hundreds of years, probably even 1,000 years until the Black Plague occurred. That was a predominant trade route. And if you think to the present day, China is building the Belt and Road Initiative because they realize the importance of economic corridors like this. If you think about Europe, you think about TEN-T, so that's the Trans-European Network for Transportation, and it's connecting all of Europe through rail, air traffic, road traffic, and making sure that we have those economic corridors in place. And if you think about North America, we also have the Canamex corridor. And so what we're doing here is that if you think about it like the final mile of the Canamex corridor, so you're building, the connections everywhere, and we're integrating with local industry here in Calgary. So I think it is a really, promising thing to do.
That is just fascinating. And the history lesson was nice as well. Is there anything I've forgotten to ask you? Anything you want to share?
I think if I was going to say what would my colleagues want to make sure, those that work with me every single day about this, on this work and what they would like me to share, I think one, I've already told you, which is we want to be good, we don't want to be lucky. So we're putting in our best effort every day to try and get this going. Another thing is we want to get our groove back. That's one message we also share with each other. So, getting our groove back is thinking about economic prosperity. We don't want to rest on our laurels. So for many years, Calgary, Alberta, we've had the fastest growth rate, but we don't have to kind of sit on that. We have to prepare for the future that's to come. And so it's, doing all the work that we need to do so we're actually prepared for a future that's very robust. And, you and myself are happy to live here, and generations to come, our kids are happy to live here too.
Fascinating. Well, thank you very much for spending some time and knowledge with me today, Oyin.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm a big fan of your work, so I will continue to watch the rest of the conversations that you
and my mom. But I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us today. As always, we value your feedback, so please reach out to us at calgaryconversations@calgary.ca and tell us what topics you'd like covered and questions you'd like answered. Until next time, be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, and if you see someone without a smile today, give them yours. Take care.